So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Carmen. It's all yours, Carmen.
Hey everybody. I'm just gonna go ahead and just be flat out with y'all about this marketplace because um I heard it from like five different people today who are in positions to know about the market. The market is being manipulated heavily this week. Um so all this stuff that you guys are hearing about in the news, seeing and stuff like that, like it's a lot of stuff going on. It's the little news that is now like, I don't expect you guys to understand how to put it all together right now, but it's the little pieces. This is like one of those like 5,000 piece puzzles. And you got to try to get enough of the puzzle pieces together to make like the little corner to even understand what the picture is supposed to be. It's kind of like that right now. So I'm just going to run down, just tell you guys very briefly, like what's going on, share my screen so you guys can actually see something. Um, and then we'll talk about the Forex Factory calendar, all the big news. So where do I start? Commodities. So I'm just going to lump commodities all together. So, the biggest thing I want you guys to know and understand right now is that we've already talked about how housing prices were manipulated. So, housing prices are still where they were, if not higher, and lumber prices are down like 72% compared to where they were at the high. A lot of building materials are down. So it should not cost builders as much to make a house, but they still have houses out on the market at the same price as they were at the height, only because people are still going to pay those absorbent prices. That is going to put a lot of pressure on the marketplace. Um, so not only that, but when we talk about commodities, I want you guys to always remember like energy, so oil, natural gas, um, gasoline, any of those energy derivatives, all of those are commodities. Also, when we talk about gold and silver, iron, copper, aluminum, those are commodities. So, commodities, when we're looking at those prices that we're looking at are essentially what people think that commodity is going to cost in the future. We're always looking at the future price of commodities. So we're never looking at the current price. If you want to know what the current price is, look like several months ago. That's just how commodity prices work. So, um, commodities also work on level of interest. So people have to be interested in the commodity for the commodity price to do something. They either have to gain interest or lose interest, but there has to be some level of interest, and the level of interest has to move in one direction or the other. Um, so the commodity prices are one thing, because as we start to look at things that are unfolding in the news, the uncertainty in the markets, we kind of had a little bit of conversation prior to recording about, COVID, about cases, just things that we're experiencing. Pfizer finally got their FDA approval for their vaccine. So that's causing a lot of movement in the marketplace. So, COVID, commodities, got Jackson Hole this week. We got Afghanistan and the aftermath of not only Americans and allies still being there, but the consequences of us kind of turning our back on some of our allies and coming out. Also, issues with oil. Oil prices are up right now. I expect that oil prices, just because of things that are going on in the Middle East, also with consumption right now going into the fall, I expect that prices will continue to be higher. I don't expect that should we get something that happens to where we could possibly have a slowdown in the marketplace. I don't think that OPEC is going to change their um their regimen, because right now, think about it, the last OPEC meeting that we had, Russia had a lot of influence. China and some of the non-OPEC countries had a lot of influence on what's going to happen with production. I don't think that we're going to get um, serious increases in production. If anything, they'll stay the same and storages will be built up. And then the price will be allowed to fall to a certain level, but it's always going to hit a floor right now, no lower than like 50, only because of who's controlling the oil market right now. So that has a really huge impact. Afghanistan, things going on in the Middle East, things going on with Israel. Um, all of those things have a really serious impact on our energy supplies that we get for this upcoming time of the year. The summer blend, we don't really have an issue producing that. It's our winter blend. It's the thicker oils, the oil that has more of the deposits in it that we get from the Middle East that we're going to be concerned about going into the future, which is why I expect oil prices there again to go up, because we're expecting that there's going to be an issue with that supply in the future. So we're expecting that the future price of oil is going to be higher, which is why oil is trending up right now. So we'll also talk about that a little bit more as time goes on, like, because that'll be incorporated a lot into to talk about stocks. So a little bit more about COVID. COVID is going to be what this whole week is going to really revolve around. So my screen right now, I'm showing today, but now I'm showing the week. So the COVID cases, the FDA approval for Pfizer's vaccine, all of that is really going to really shape up to all the conversation that's going to happen on Thursday and Friday. So it might not seem like a big deal, whether you believe in COVID or not. COVID is what is going to shape our financial future, not only on the economic side with the government, but on the not only on the economic side with the Fed, but on the fiscal side with the government. Meaning, when the government goes to do the yearly budget for the government, for Congress, for the states, for all the programs, COVID has to be baked in somewhere, because there has to be some level of relief for people who are still dealing with the aftermath of COVID and what could possibly come, because think about it, at the end of August. We're at the end of August. They do the budget in October. They start working on that at the end of September, beginning of October, before they take their recess. So when you start hearing about government shutdowns and stuff like that, it's always during that time of the year, because that's when they work on the budget. So COVID, the cases, this FDA approval has to work. Like, this approval has to work, and you over the next coming at least week or two, just listen, because if the conversation hasn't shifted towards more people getting vaccinated, that is a huge problem. That means that there's a systemic problem in the mindset of people. To them, I'm not saying that people actually have an issue, but for them, they're going to think that there's a systemic issue in the mindset of Americans, to where they don't even trust that the vaccine was fully FDA approved. So if in the next coming weeks we don't hear that more people are getting vaccinated, because remember, that was a reason for why a lot of people didn't get the vaccine. It's because it wasn't FDA approved. It was just on emergency approval. Now that it's fully approved, now we they're expecting to see an increase in vaccinations. For them, that's going to help because we're going into flu season. We're going into, the time of the year where we would have been getting like flu vaccines, and I haven't seen a sign yet for a flu vaccine except for in one of my vendor accounts. So I guess we forgot about the flu this year. I don't know, whatever. But that is going to be what is going to shape the whole talk on Thursday and Friday. Thursday and Friday is Jackson Hole. Jackson Hole is by far one of the top 5 financial events of the year. I can honestly say that, if it doesn't make some people's top 5, it definitely makes the top 10, and there's 365 days in a year. It's super important because it's the who's who of the financial world. It's leaders from all over. It's the World Bank, it's the Rothschilds, it's the, economic professors of this, it's the statisticians, it's the people who sit on the committees and the boards that help the Fed come up with all of this economic data. It's those same people for other countries. Like, it's a lot of smart people who literally get paid to put these reports and stuff together or help put them together. But they all get together. They talk about everything there is to talk about money. They talk about everything there is to talk about the economy, about where money goes. Where should it go? Why should it go there? How can we fix XYZ problem? So the thing now that we have to hear on Thursday, and I showed you guys charts a couple of weeks ago. So refer back to the Zoom call. If I can find the exact chart on this computer, I'll put it in the chat in Telegram. But we're expecting to hear Jerome Powell say that we have to rein in, cut back, taper, however he's going to word it, the QE, quantitative easing, stimulus, federal injection of stimulus, however he's going to say that. Essentially, the Fed has to stop printing money. That's all it boils down to, is he's in some way, shape, or form going to say that the Fed has to stop printing money. If he doesn't say that, that's a problem, because the Fed has already said that we've met our inflation goal. Like, literally, we were not supposed to meet our inflation goal until next year. We've already hit the inflation goal for this year and part of the inflation goal, most of it anyway, for next year. So we are super inflated right now. So now the Fed has to try to rein in inflation. We talked about the different ways you do that. That is going to be to cut stimulus, because the more money you print, the bigger you're blowing up the balloon. So now is the time to put less air in and allow some of the air to kind of seep out of the balloon. What is that going to do? It's going to shrink. It's going to stabilize and somewhat shrink the economy, because essentially, when you think about the analogy I just said, when you stop putting air into a balloon, you're either pinching it really, really hard to the point where nothing's coming out, but nothing's going in, but nothing's coming out, or you're pinching it to the point where nothing's really going in, but you got some that's seeping out. So the balloon is getting smaller. You can't really notice it, but it is getting smaller. That's what's going to happen to the economy. The goal is that this happens over time and not immediately. Also, the goal is that things with COVID rebound. So this is all dependent on people getting vaccinated, Delta variant not spreading, and hospitalizations and stuff decreasing, and jobs increasing. Is very dependent upon that, because if that doesn't happen, the Fed is going to have to go back in and re-stimulate the economy all over again. So super, super important. It's like I said, it's like in my top 5 of fiscal events that happen during the year. If Jerome Powell does not say that, I've already been eyeing gold. I've been eyeing crypto. I've been eyeing different areas of the market that would be affected by this, only because then you throw an extra level of uncertainty into the marketplace. Him not saying that they're going to cut stimulus is saying that there's still too much uncertainty in the marketplace. So then you start looking towards, well, where do people go when they need some safety? Where do people go? Where do people put their money when they want to at least know that it's going to hold somewhat, like most of its value? So you start looking towards gold. Gold is like at that all-time key level. It always does something at 1800. That's kind of where it's hovering right now. So now is like in the next, several, well, right now, days in the short term, but definitely to the end of the quarter, watching gold, see what gold does, solely because as we continue to look at everything that's going on with the economy, as we look at different companies that are purchasing gold, China just went out on a major purchase of gold, and not just on the Forex market. Like, I follow these things. China actually bought physical gold, like that's to be delivered to them next Tuesday. Like, they're getting bars of gold. So then my thought process is, what's happening that China foresees in the marketplace to where they're buying physical gold, not Forex, not futures, not like physical bullion. Like, it has to be sent to them on a cargo ship or a plane, probably a plane. It's kind of heavy, probably a cargo ship. I don't know, but it was a lot. It was really heavy in my mind. So I was thinking a cargo ship, but anyway, it has to be sent to them. So Jerome Powell has a lot of weight on his shoulders for this week. Of course, everybody else too, because some of these people give speeches, give their opinions about the economy. But Jerome Powell has a lot of weight on his shoulders, because he's talking about our economy. His term ends next year. Janet Yellen has already somewhat given her nomination for him to be put back in the chair seat for next term. So he has to also perform according to how she views things, because essentially, his seat is a seat you're nominated for. We don't vote for his seat. So he gets nominated. So there has to be a little bit of bias towards those people who are going to be helping you to get your seat back. And then if he doesn't care and he cares more about the economy, well, great for him in that respect. Also, another thing that's going to come up, it's going to continue to come up when we talk about the Fed and governments around the world, is crypto. So, oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So crypto is always going to come up because we now have major world governments creating their central bank backed digital currency. They're in the works of doing different things. Some of the people who have been working on the project at MIT have been talking about, they've been talking a little bit about how they've actually come up with the project, how they're working on certain things within reason, because of course they can't just like say everything. But a major part of this is going back to that conversation I told you guys that Janet Yellen had with a lot of the companies that distribute cryptocurrency here in the United States. That conversation was had with most companies, from the Visas and PayPal's to Coinbase and Bittrex and Binance and, you know, all of those companies where you can have wallets. She sat down and talked to the CEOs of all of those companies. So the biggest thing right now is that they have and they are working on, and very soon will be allowing certain crypto payment systems to go through on state and government levels. The biggest thing is the tracking. So that's why Binance and Bittrex are getting a little bit more strict with their paperwork. They want to keep their regulation because that was the biggest thing. If they don't follow through with any of this, they will be deregulated. When you become deregulated in the United States, the government seizes your assets, which means that they seize all of the wallets that you hold. So then you're on the hook to all the people who hold wallets with you. That's literally what Janet Yellen has said. People don't realize that. So if you have accounts, that's why it's just important to know who your CEO is of the companies. That's why we had that big conversation on the Zoom call a couple of months ago. Know who owns the company, where your money is sitting. Know who owns, whether it's a physical wallet or it's digitally held. Know who the owner is. Know how you would be able to get to your assets should you have to. And that's not fear. That's literally you just being educated, because that can happen in stocks, that can happen in Forex, that can happen literally in any aspect and area of your life. So you just have to know what's going on. Jackson Hole is going to be that place where cryptocurrency is going to be talked about. Those CEOs are going to be at Jackson Hole. Their CFOs are going to be at Jackson Hole, Robinhood, all of those people, they're going to be there. So top 5 fiscal events of the year. The next fiscal event is going to be happening in like a month. Literally, it's like the third quarter Fed meeting. And then right after that, like a week or two after that, is going to be another top 5, which is going to be the federal budget. So these next 2 months going to be like super packed, like a lot of information, a lot of stuff that's going to affect you directly and indirectly is going to be happening between now and like the middle to end of October. So just make sure that you guys are aware of what's going on in the marketplace. Make sure that you guys are aware of what's going on with your accounts. And I am going to help you guys through this information. Right now, my biggest thing is Jackson Hole. Like, yeah, just to kind of cover so that I can show you guys. Today, very mixed news for flash and flash manufacturing and services news for Europe. Very mixed. US missed target, and with our services, we actually missed target by like 4 index points, which isn't all that great. Tomorrow, there isn't a lot on the calendar, but there's a lot going on in the markets. It's just little nitpicky stuff, you know, stuff that's going on overseas, oil, the markets, the vaccination stuff. So it's always going to be something, even if you don't see it on the Forex Factory calendar. Oil, because we were talking about inventories, we've been talking about travel. With the resurgence, it's just paying attention to, you know, how are these airlines doing? Are, you know, what are their storages like? Paying attention to those things. And then, of course, you know, I just spent most of what I was saying talking about Thursday and Friday with Jackson Hole. Also, this preliminary GDP number is going to be super important. I expect that Jerome Powell will talk a little bit about that. That has to be either at the beginning or the end of what he's going to be talking about, because everything that he's going to be talking about is going to be affecting the GDP, essentially. Its growth, its shrinkage. So let's just hope, with fingers crossed, that, he does go ahead and say that the Fed is going to cut stimulus. Also, just know that when the Fed cuts stimulus, as I showed you guys on the chart, every time the Fed has done that, there has been a retraction in the markets. The market does not like when the Fed cuts stimulus, because you have to print money. We have to go into debt for our economy to grow. So, as backwards as that sounds, that's how it is right now. I feel like someone should go find Robert Reich and, the crew who Clinton had, because Clinton had us in a surplus, regardless of whether you liked his ethics and morals or not. He had the country in a surplus. We haven't had it since. And so, anyway, that's that. Jackson Hole, please pay attention to it. If you don't know anything about it, click this folder, and you can read a little bit about it there. It's always sponsored by the Fed in Kansas City, and it's going to be very important, super, super, super important. Read about it, and put your thoughts and ideas and stuff about it into the group chat. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Levels. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. If I think of something, I'll drop it in the chat. And if it's just something I have to explain, I'll put that I have to explain it in the chat, and then we'll do it at the end.
Cool deal. Appreciate that, Carmen. Great information as always. Dropping the sauce. All right. I'm back. I'm back. Can y'all hear me?
Hey, yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool deal. All right, yeah. Lost my service for a second there, y'all, but I'm back. All right. Let's get into this. All right, looking back at the dollar, looking at the dollar to start the week out with, should I say. We see that we did come up and retest this level last week, 93.40. So we see markets open back up this week, bearish on the day. So we're going to see if we get a reaction off of this market structure here. If the dollar starts back out, starts the week off bearish. Start the week off bullish after we had this bearish drop today. Um, we can already see price reacting to the level. Let me go down 2-hour time frame. Yeah. So and we could see price dip all the way down up in there in this previous level right here to retest this previous structure here, and then come back up to retest this previous high that it made last week. And that's to start the week off with. All right. Yeah. So that's what we'll look at. Let me see. So let's look at our currency pairs. Get that out of there from last week. Okay. Yeah, we can see we open up the markets. We open up the week bullish to fill in this imbalance that we see here. Fill in this imbalance that we see here. Hmm. All right. See what time and price give us for London in the morning. If the dollar continues to push up to the upside, then y'all know we gonna expect to see our currency pairs continue to push to the downside for the week. Same thing, we're looking at GBP USD. Expect to see this thing push on to the downside. Yeah. Same thing with NZD USD. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we'll be expecting for our currency pairs to start the week with. to the downside. And then we'll play the markets from there. Look, when we come back Wednesday night. Looking at silver. I want to see silver come back down and retest it week again. Still see that happening. Still would like to see that. And we could even see price silver drop down to 1950 this week. So let's keep our eyes on that for silver. Hold on. Okay. So we get this sell off in gold to start the week off with. Let's look at oil. We see that we got our up move off of oil to start the week out with. So we'll be targeting price levels over here for this week. Back up around 69, 66, $70. Let's see if we hit those price targets this week. Looking at U30. Told you guys last week I marked this area of liquidity for you. Told you that this would be an area of interest this week, and as soon as the market opens, U30 pops up there, snatches that liquidity up. So now we have to see how markets play out through the rest of Asian markets tonight, going into London markets in the morning, and then we'll see what kind of setup time and price gives us. So with that being said, I'll start the recording and take any questions.